everyone, welcome to the Horror Room. I'm Travis Bruce, and today we're doing another indie horror spotlight. Today I have with us, he's a filmmaker, and he has a movie you can actually go over to see on Amazon right now, and it's called The Luring. I have with us Christopher Wells. Christopher, welcome to the Horror Room.
Thanks for having me.
It's a pleasure having you on. So tell my guests a little bit about The Luring.
The Luring was shot a few years ago, and it was shot in Vermont for 22 days, and it rained for 15 consecutive days, which made things very interesting because the house that we shot it in was my family's vacation house, and we've had that house since 1989. And so since it was being sold during mud season, the new owners wanted to do their walkthrough 2 days after we called cut. And surprisingly, nothing was damaged, and all the mud that was going in and out of the house, somehow magically we cleaned it up. So it was a little stressful knowing that the new owners might say no, because when you have a film crew, shooting in a house, it's not the, it kind of gets a little worn. And thank God everything worked out, because my mom was nice enough for us to allow us to shoot there, to kind of send the house with a nice kind of send off. So that was, a fun experience, but a little stressful, because I was not only the producer director, but I was also the PA cleaning up like ferociously after every day that we were shooting there, because it was just the amount of mud that was going in and out was just incredible. We had to get ram board to protect the floors, but that just was getting so soggy and wet. So every day we had to like clean it up, rip it up and then put more stuff down. But the crew was great. They were very respectful of the location. So that definitely helped. But you can't, when you're going in and out during mud season, when all the snow is melting and it's literally inches thick of mud, there's not much you can do. You can try to wipe your feet, but I mean, it's just going to get in. And, but yeah, it was a fun experience. It was definitely, there was a lot of challenges because, as any low budget film, you have limitations, but I think that's what makes low budget films so interesting. I personally like seeing a director do something with not a lot of money, and so that's why I've always been drawn to low budget films, because that they don't have a full crew like a big Hollywood film. And I was just watching something on YouTube about a famous actor saying that he was working on a film with a big time director, and just wasn't able to relax in front of the camera. So he did like the take like 40 times, and after the 40th time, the director called him over and said, "Okay, just sit over here and let's just relax." Well, you don't have that luxury when you're a low budget filmmaker. You got a shooting ratio from 3 to 1, and if you don't get it in 3 takes, you're like, shit. The AD starts looking at you like, well, fuck, we're not going to be able to get this in 4 takes, and then we have to hurry up and go over there. And so you don't have that kind of luxury. So I like watching films that don't have all the things that big budget films have, because I like it. I like films that are a little rough around the edges. Obviously, you still want it to be polished, but with any low budget film, there's going to be, it's just nice to see like people doing.
It has that grain. It has that grain to it, which I like as well.
Yeah, and I think that adds, actually, it's better filmmaking for me. I'm drawn to that. Like, I like it a little bit, whatever. If it's too polished, usually those stories are also kind of boring. Low budget films, I think, especially now, there's a lot of really great stories that I like to watch, and The Luring is got a lot of stuff going on in it, and different characters that are interesting and that scared the hell out of me as I was writing the script. So it was nice to see these actors really portray them on camera, and so yeah, it was fun. I wouldn't shoot in Vermont again, because they don't really have the film commission. They just don't have support. Yeah, because everyone's coming from New York City or Baltimore. I mean, not Boston. No one's really in Vermont, because there's no film community there. There's no really kind of much. So you have to then add travel and lodging and all. It's not like shooting in New York City where everyone can kind of go home. It's just not like that. So now you're thinking, oh my God, now you got to add X amount on the budget, which sucks because you don't have a lot of money to play with anyway. So and just the support there it just doesn't exist. So I love Vermont and the people there are amazing, but shooting there is just not something that I'd ever want to do again.
Now, why do you think you brought up an interesting topic? Why do you feel like so many indie horror filmmakers? I mean, you look at Toby Hooper with Texas Chainsaw Massacre and John Carpenter with Halloween. These were indie horror films, and they had that gritty, grainy look to it, and it just seemed dirty and it just seemed eerie. Why do you think so? And that's how horror. I grew up on horror looking. Why do you think so many indie filmmakers, when in the horror genre, they are using the 5K? They want it to be beautiful and clean and crisp. Why do you think they're going down that road instead?
You're saying that why are they going down the crisp road versus like the 8mm road?
Yeah, why are they going away from the gritty, grainy look that we grew up on with horror?
Well, I think people get caught up with all like these new cameras, like the red camera and this camera and whatever. And so people want to kind of play with those toys. And I think that a lot of filmmakers that don't have a lot of experience are very easily impressed with a DP that has like those kind of packages. And they think that just because someone's got a red camera, they're going to be a better DP than someone that, has a Sony or something that's not as, popular or as regarded as like a top shelf camera. And then they'll go into post and then they might put a film grain on it anyway. So, I can't speak for other filmmakers. I mean, for us, when we shot The Luring, I forget. I think we shot it on a Sony. I forget. But like you, I grew up watching films that were shot on 8mm or 16mm. So it's just synonymous with these old films because they didn't have the budget to shoot on 35. So there is like that grain, especially when you see it in a theater. The grains are further apart.
Mm-hmm.
But I think with anything, I mean, with technology, things are so crisp that I just think that that's just what's available. Unless like you're trying to do like a throwback, unless like you're trying to make it look like the 70s or the 80s. But I'm not quite sure why other filmmakers are doing it. Besides the fact that they're just impressed with the cameras that DPs have, and they just think, okay, well, then when they see the footage, they're probably thinking, well, we don't want to make it less crisp because they think, well, we paid for this guy to shoot it this way or the girl to shoot it this way, so they don't want to like quote damage it. But I say screw it, do what you want,
because I mean that dark look, it adds to the element of a horror film. I mean it makes it scary. I mean when you see everything and everything is bright and pretty, I'm not saying the horror movies that do it great, but like when everything is like so clear and beautiful, it kind of takes away the element from a horror movie.
Yeah. I also think what's kind of crazy now is that when you look at films of yesteryear, you can see the darks, but now everything is kind of like it can't, like the new cameras or the new TVs monitors, they can't kind of focus in on the darkness, and it kind of has like that weird kind of whatever shape it is, which is kind of strange. It's like, well, I thought technology was supposed to advance and we can see dark films, but a lot of times when I watch streaming, on a streaming service or whatever, like sometimes like the darks are not like dense. It doesn't look good. But when you look at like an old film, it's like, wow, like these are great darks, and so it's kind of weird, like how like we're paying for all this technology, and somehow it's when you compare it to yesteryear's movies, they don't look the same. And I mean, obviously with a horror film, you have to do at least some dark scenes because it's scarier at night than it is during the day. But I also think it's interesting to see something that can scare you when it's not so dark too. I think when, especially with psychological thrillers, that's when, I mean, I don't want anything to be like, Disney Bright or anything like
Yeah.
that, because that's not gonna, it obviously has to be moody with the music and the acting, all that kind of
Hmm.
stuff. But I think with psychological thrillers, especially, it's interesting to see how you can scare someone and not maybe rely on the old tropes.
Hmm.
I try to do that with The Luring and other films that I've done, where as I'm writing it, I'm thinking, okay, am I going down this road that it's kind of cliche, or it's been done before, and you try to, as a filmmaker, you try to not necessarily reinvent the wheel, but just be unique enough where if people watch your stuff, they can appreciate that you're not, doing what maybe a lazier writer would do. You're trying to take your audience down a road that is, maybe you're setting them up, like you're setting up a trope that the audience may think they what's going to happen, but you want to kind of trick them, or take them somewhere different.
I agree. I mean, as a horror watcher or just movie watcher, I like to be on my toes. I like to. There's nothing worse, because you probably agree with me. There's nothing worse than a predictable movie. I don't care
Mm.
what genre. There's nothing worse than a predictable movie where 25% into the movie, you already know what the twist is or
Yeah.
what the ending is going to be, and like, but I feel like right now when it comes to horror movies, they have done a good job of not doing that. I mean, something that in the 80s and 90s, the early 90s, like horror movies were kind of predictable. They're great
Mm.
movies, but they were predictable. You knew who was going to survive. You knew who
Yeah.
but like now I'm starting to see in horror movies, you're like, holy shit, I didn't see that coming.
And it's because of the low budget filmmakers. I think you're getting back to the low budget filmmakers. I think there's a lot of, like, everyone's got a camera, so everyone thinks that they're a director, and you see a lot of like this, it's saturated. But if you can find, there's a lot of really good, talented, low budget filmmakers that are telling really unique stories, and I see them all the time on Tubi or Amazon or YouTube, and they can be, whether it's a short film or a feature. Um, I think that this is a very interesting time for filmmakers, and so I'm optimistic. Not necessarily with the platforms, because I think that they're not treating us fairly. I mean, you can get like 1 million views on your YouTube channel and make $30, which I think is
Yeah.
not fair. But having said that, people want to create. They are creating. They have the means to create, because you could do stuff now with your iPhone. And I think that there's a difference between creating content versus making a short film. Anyone can create content, but when you do something more artistic, and create a short film or even a feature, um, I'm seeing a lot of really good stories, very unique stories that aren't relying on the old tropes or whatever, because we've been there, done that, and I think the way to stand out is to have a unique voice and to tell a story that hasn't been told before, and that's going to get more people to watch and follow that particular filmmaker. And there's various ways of doing that. That's why I think short films are a fun medium, because you don't have to necessarily follow the same rules as you do when you do a feature. With a feature, it's usually a 3-act structure, and you're following a protagonist and their journey and the inciting incident and whatever. With short films, it's kind of like a music video, where you can really go off the rails and just sort of have non sequiturs and just kind of really surprise your audience in such a different way that you can with a feature. Because with a feature, you have to sustain their interest for an hour and a half.
Mm-hmm.
With a short, it's obviously it's almost like a scene, or you got a shorter time to do that. And so you can kind of play with it a little bit. You have more latitude to kind of be more free. And though I think it's also interesting and important as a filmmaker to be able to tell a story in a short format too. Like, if you just have non sequiturs in every short film that you have, it's like, okay, well, then that becomes your trope, and so you don't want that either. But I think having like a nice mix, and so it's nice to see these short films.
And I love short films, and I agree. I think it has to take incredible skill to make a short film and give that audience that beginning, middle, and end where they
Mm-hmm.
feel fulfilled at the end.
Yeah.
Because you're trying to develop a story as quick as possible. And I talked to a lot of filmmakers, and they said that making a short film is way tougher than making a feature length, because a feature length you have that time to for character development, plot twist. In a short film, you gotta give the audience boom, boom, everything you want in that short period of time.
Yeah, yeah, and you have to make them give a shit, like you said, like in a
Yeah,
very short period of time. And so, how do you do that? And it's how do you make people care about the story and care about these characters, because they're not leaving the theater, which is, once you have people in the theater, they're going to stay there. They paid their $18 to watch a movie. But if they're watching your stuff on YouTube or on a platform, they could just 30 seconds, they can just click on something else. So how do you keep them interested? And that's the art of making a good film. And it's the magic of being creative and knowing how to show a story in a compelling way, or a funny way, or whatever way that you want to convey the story, and make people want to see it to the end. But you're dealing with a lot of different demographics. A lot of times you don't know who's going to watch your film. A 14-year-old may not like some of my work, or someone in their 70s may not like.
yeah,
It depends on the film that I'm making. But and so when you look at your analytics, and you're going on your YouTube and you're looking at your analytics, and you see like how long are people watching your stuff. Well, you can't really hold that to the creativity, or say, oh wow, maybe I'm not feeling so great about my film because people are only watching like the first 30 seconds. Well, you don't know who those people are. That may not be your target audience, but if you send it out to your target audience, you'll see your analytics change a little bit. And so there's a good and a bad with the accessibility of what filmmakers have. And so you just have to kind of, I think you just have to stay true, write something that you care about, that you find interesting, and then hope to find those people that will, that like what you like.
yeah. And I agree. I mean, as a YouTuber as well, I follow my analytics, and by the way, you have a YouTube channel as well, which you can see a lot of short films. We're going to jump into that, but as a YouTuber, when I first started, a year and a half ago, I was like, "What the fuck am I doing this?" And that? But and because when you see people, watch time 28 seconds and shit like that, it's defeating. Like it
Yeah,
can be defeating.
of course.
But like you have to find out who your target audience is, because like even like what I do right now, this is not everybody's cup of tea. This is not a lot of people's cup of tea, but like people who like indie filmmakers and people who like indie horror and certain sections of horror fans, they love this. They
Yeah.
will sit and watch a 30-minute interview about filmmaking, and that's so important on finding. But at the same time, though, Christopher, I feel like our attention span it's incredibly short now. I just feel like, and I'm guilty of this too, man. I'm 42, and I used to be able to sit through a 2-hour movie. Like
Hmm.
if I'm going to sit through a 2-hour movie, it has to fucking get me from the beginning. It has to like get my attention from the beginning, and continue to add on, because it's tough to sit through 2-hour or longer movies now.
Well, that's why I like going to the theater, because you can't
Yeah,
leave. And
exactly.
you have to lock in, because when you're watching something at home, you could just go on your phone while you're watching the movie,
Yeah,
and on your couch. And so I think it's important, and I'm happy to say that there are more people going back to the movies, which is great, because during the pandemic, people were thinking, oh, the theaters are dead. What are they going to do? But they're coming back, thankfully. Um,
yes,
but it's hard and it's challenging to not get caught up in your analytics. I think that you can't take it to heart. You just have to keep on keeping on.
yeah,
Because when you get, I'm not saying you, but like when other people with their YouTube channels, when they get too caught up in their analytics, yes, it's important to kind of maybe understand what's kind of going on, trends within your own kind of work, but there's always going to be people that are just going to not be interested, that are going to click on your video for whatever reason because of their analytics, and then they click off it because they're like, well, yeah, I like horror movies, but I don't want to see that, or whatever it might be. Or if you watch one thing on YouTube, then YouTube is like, oh, you want to see all that kind of stuff, and it's like, wait, no, not really, but so it's I think we're still in the beginning stages. I mean, YouTube is only how old and so I think maybe like 20 years from now it will be very different. But we just have to keep creating. I mean, as artists, we can't live without expressing ourselves. We just have to create art. We just, when you talk to a non-artist, they may not understand. Like, we just have to, if we see something and it inspires us, we have to get it out. Like, we'll just go crazy if we can't. And thankfully, we live in a world that we at least have a smartphone where we can shoot something on our own. We don't always have to hire a crew to tell whatever story. I also think it's important the best filmmakers are the ones that understand the box in which their budget restrains them in. Because once you know what your box is, like, okay, I don't have the money to do this, that, and whatever, then you start to creatively think, how can I connect these dots? How can I tell that story of this, whatever it is, or that shot, but I don't have the budget to do that. So then you creatively think, okay, well, I don't have the budget to do that, so how am I going to do it? Because I want to tell that same story or whatever it might be. And so I think that it's interesting to see filmmakers doing that.
Mm-hmm. I agree. Now, listen, I'm going to talk about your YouTube channel because I had a chance to watch one of your. By the way, listen, please subscribe to Christopher's YouTube channel. The link is down in the description. It's some great stuff on there. But I watched one of your recent short, dark comedy films, which I was born in the early '80s and I grew up in the '90s, and like, so this hit at home for me. And it's called "Call Your Fantasy Awaits." Tell my audience a little bit about it.
So, there's a band who I really like called Mother Mary, and so I follow them. I met them when they now live in California, but they were living in New York, and I saw them at a show, and they were very cool, and they hung out with the audience afterwards. And, so I started to kind of talk to them a little bit online, nothing major. And then they posted something kind of like a hotline, a throwback, photo of them. And they were kind of promoting like a song or something. And I thought, man, I used to love those cheesy commercials back in the day, these call now commercials. And I thought, man, I got to do something with that, And so I sent out a casting and got some great actors, and we shot it with my iPhone 15 Pro, and I used a DJI mic. So, very, very inexpensive stuff. Just put the backdrop and just, had these actors come in and, do their thing. And and then, of course, Teddy, the weird guy in it, is a nice juxtaposition. I just was having fun with it. There may or may not be a social commentary. A lot of my work, I sometimes sneak a social commentary, but honestly, if people just want to have fun with it and just laugh and just be weirded out with, with this character, that's great. That's really more of the thing. But it just was. I was inspired by them, and so I sent the link to them. They said that they loved it, to Mother Mary, and which was great because it was they're the ones that inspired this, and that's what I was saying before. Like, as a filmmaker, when you see something, you get so inspired by something, you just have to do it. I just had to tell this little slice of story or whatever, and it was fun doing. It was we shot it in one day over the weekend. I think the whole shoot was probably maybe 4 hours. So the girls left, and then I did my part, and I think my part, I did it maybe an hour. I mean, I was kind of exhausted at that point, but I'm like, all right, before my girlfriend gets home, I gotta like clean up the living room. So I have to do this. And so I shot it. She came home and everything was done, which was nice for me. Because who wants to come home and all film equipment is in your living room. I mean, she wants to come home to a nice clean apartment, and yeah, and then I posted it on my YouTube channel. That I wasn't thinking of doing a festival run with it. I mean, I may enter into something, but I really just was doing films for my YouTube channel, because the thing is with the festivals, like if you submit to a festival and you don't post it on your channel, you can wait like a year. And I'm like, I'm not going to do that. Like I think I'd rather just put it out there, and there are some festivals that are in New York City that I could submit to, that even though it's still on my channel, I could still submit, and maybe I'll do that. Who knows? But it was fun.
Yeah, because I mean, I grew up on those commercials. I mean,
Yeah.
every once in a while on Saturday nights, I would be up late when I should be up late. I was watch. I'm still a Howard Stern fan, and I used to watch Howard Stern. And he would have the recordings of his show on E.
Yeah.
And those sleazy
Yeah.
commercials would come on, and I remember thinking to myself, like, who is actually calling those hotlines?
Yeah.
And listen, by the way, I'm 100% admit if I ever called one hotline. I never called one. But like, I was like, who is like, and then the older I got, I'm a teenager, I'm in my 20s, and I would get home from the bar and those commercials would be on. I'm like, well, who in the hell is calling those hotlines? And like, and they will always say that, like, whoever you're talking to is not the women from the commercial. I'm trying to say this in a nice way, but like, so Christopher, have you ever called? Be honest with me. Have you ever called one of those?
I don't know if I ever called those, but I used to call the party lines, where you would call and there'd be like a whole bunch of people, and you'd hear someone with like a sexy voice, like, hey, what's your name? And like people are like talking all over you, like, whoa, who, me? No, not you, the other person that just said this, and then you're like, okay, what's your number? And everyone's listening and talking at the same time, and then you get that person's number. And then, so I quote dated someone, I think I was like in 7th grade, for like a couple months. I never met her, but I don't even remember where she lived. And we just talked on the phone like every other day or whatever. And it was just, this is like, when payphones, people had payphones, no cell phones. And so, yeah, I don't think I called a hotline. I mean, I want to say I did though, but I don't remember how it went, because they weren't cheap. And I would,
they're like,
and I would never
a minute.
Yeah, and I would never do it at my house, because I wouldn't want my phone bill to show it. So I know I didn't do it at the house, but I used to call those party lines, which I thought were revolutionary, at the time. And it was just such a cool thing. Like, oh my God, you can meet the, of course your imagination is going like, oh my God, it's the most gorgeous girl on the other end.
Yeah.
And it may not be. But yeah, those were the days, man. But yeah, I don't know who really called those, because they were just too expensive, and it's not the girl, in the commercial. It's not, so.
Yes, you hope people would know that. But like, I never understood the point. Listen, by the way, I'm not making fun of anybody who called those lines.
Yeah, actually, no, I mean, I am. Right,
actually, I kind of am. But no, but I'm like, where does it go? You know what I mean? I never understood, where does that go? I mean, are you just having a conversation to jerk off and then go to sleep?
Total jerk off material. That's all it is. I mean, like, what else? Because you got to do it quick, because you got 3 minutes. Otherwise, you're going to have to spend another $20. No, you got to and you got to go into it like rock hard, because you don't want to waste. I mean, it has to be that. Because you're not going to call and be like, trying to get like a meaningful conversation with them. You just want to be like, all right, let's just get to it,
Well, why don't you just go to a strip club or something at that point? And like, I don't know. I guess you can't jerk off. Well, in Baltimore, you can jerk off a strip club, but I think most.
I'm going to Baltimore.
You can't.
That's it.
Go to there's an area. So there's an area in Baltimore. It's called the Block, right? And it is the trashiest, nastiest fucking strip clubs ever. And listen, you can buy whatever you want there: pussy, weed, guns, whatever. Like, it is. But the crazy part about it, all this shady shit is happening, and the Baltimore Police Headquarters. I don't know if you know about the Baltimore Police. It's the most corrupt police in the whole entire country.
Really?
It's sitting right there in the middle of all of this prostitution and drug dealing, this and that, and they don't do nothing.
Yeah.
And like, so it's. But yes, the block. If you ever get to Baltimore, find out what the block is, and it is. It will blow your mind. You're like, whoa, this is happening in the United States. Like, whoa.
Oh, I went to Towson State before I went to School of Visual Arts. So I hung out in Baltimore a little bit, but this is, many moons ago. And there was a place that was pretty, like, they had a lot of stuff going on in Baltimore, but I would go there to watch grunge shows. This is like when grunge was like, the thing in the 90s. And so, but yeah, I think strip clubs are such a waste because you're spending all this money just to get cock teased. It's like, well,
100%.
Why would I want that? Like, what the
100%.
fuck? It's not worth it to me. I just, I kind of just don't like that. I mean, look, God bless anyone that's in the sex industry. I mean, I think it's great. I'm not saying anything.
It's amazing. Yes. Yeah. It's needed. Yes.
I just don't see the point in spending so much money for what? I'm just not. I don't understand it.
But like, I don't even understand OnlyFans, which I think OnlyFans is like the new 1-800, 1-900.
Yeah.
Thing. And like, it's so you're paying $30 a month to jerk off to the same woman because you're literally seeing the same person. Like,
yeah.
And I'm like, I mean, we're in the year 2025 where porn is fucking free. Like, you can go onto a billion different sites and watch porn for free. I don't understand why anybody would pay for that.
Back in the day, I used to buy dirty magazines and you felt ashamed, going up to the counter, because you'd always like put like a Mad magazine on top of it, like, oh yeah. But now it's so accessible, which sucks. It just sort of, and it could be. Unfortunately, there's a lot of people that can be addicted to it, which is, a real problem because people are foregoing real relationships for this imaginary, world. And so but yeah, I mean, it is free. It's out there. I don't understand why people would pay, but people are doing it. People are paying. People are making so much money with an OnlyFans, and you have a lot of women that are saying, well, why am I busting my ass, being a waitress or this or that, and I can make a killing in an OnlyFans. And so clearly there's people that want that accessibility with that one person. Mm-hmm. I mean, I would fucking do it, I mean, if, I thought, well, maybe I can, like, I wouldn't want to get naked, but maybe like I got really nice feet. Maybe there's like a foot fetish and I could like, show my feet. I always like tell my girlfriend I got like the nicest looking feet. She always like, makes fun of me because my feet are like white and cold.
I have horrible feet. But listen, I always say, I said, if it was guaranteed that I could become, but it would have to. But how are you going to guarantee that, right? If it was a guarantee that I could become a millionaire off of being OnlyFans, I would be OnlyFans in a heartbeat. I really would. But like with my luck, I mean, I'll be like some of these OnlyFans models who are only making like $20 a month, and I'm like, I just show my whole ass off, to the whole entire world, and I just make $20.
Yeah,
like it's not worth it.
Well, it goes back to what we were talking about before. You just have to be unique and creative. You got to do something with that ass to make it, make people want to pay more money.
No ass. I'm a black guy with no ass, Christopher. All right, man. Christopher, where can everyone find you, my friend?
The best place to probably find me is on my YouTube channel, which is Christopher Wells Filmmaker. They can also watch some of my weird short films at weirdshortfilms.com. People are into like weird comedies or horror. That's probably like the best place to watch my stuff.
Love it, man. Listen, I got the link to his YouTube channel down there, so in the description. So definitely click on it. There's some good stuff on there. I didn't even get into the one about Jim. I didn't even get into that. That was a fun one.
Oh, the one with the bag.
Yeah, it's a bag. Yeah, that was fun too.
I got a lot of strange looks at the park.
Yeah, so it's some. I bet you did. There's some good shit on there, so to definitely check it out and subscribe. And also, too, get your asses over to Amazon and check out The Luring. Christopher, this was fun, man.
Good, yeah. I'm going to send you some feet photos.
I'll see some ass photos too. So. You could be like, "Did this motherfucker just see me a picture of his back?" That's what it's gonna look like. All right, everyone. Well, thank you for coming to the Horror Room. I'm Travis Bruce. That's my man, Christopher Wells. This was fun.
Thank you so much.
We'll see you next time. Take care.